This video is sponsored by Bokksu. Once upon a time, actually multiple times upon a time, I said that what I was most excited about catching up with One Piece was that I was going to be able to cover 3 chapters at a time and deep dive into the minor details and really have a full discussion. And Oda did not wait a single month before he put me to shame. I know, as well as you do, that everybody is here to talk about the final panel or the final spread on the most recent chapter, chapter 1043. So we're gonna start there. What we're gonna do is we're going to start talking about that mess that just happened. Then we'll take a break to talk about some delicious Japanese snacks. Then we will reverse, go back up and talk about the 3 chapters in succession. I will just be hitting on the major points because there's simply too much going on in that last little bit to be able to dive deep, so sorry. And then we're going to come back around to the beginning, which is the end, and talk about the ending some more, because that's the way I've apparently structured this video. So we're gonna start at the end, and we're gonna talk about the end at the beginning of this video and the end of this video, so I'm not gonna talk about it all right here, but I do need to start here because this is the thing that is taking up all of my headspace. So after Luffy got pummeled and the light went out in his eyes, Zunisha shows up and says, and his eyes match Luffy's, and he says, Joy Boy has arrived, or he's here. Hang on. She's already unprepared and a mess. Joy Boy has returned. Luffy's smile changes and his face melts. What a normal thing you did there, Oda. So, I know that at the time that this video is going live, you guys have already theorized this to death. So you don't need my theories, but we'll talk about it anyway. Because there's so many directions that this could go in, and probably we don't know the correct one. Probably none of us will guess it because it's Oda, and really, who knows? My first assumption was that he was being possessed. One of my patrons pointed out that during the Fire Festival, this is where the barrier between our world and the spiritual world is at its weakest, so it's certainly possible that a spirit, that Joy Boy spirit, could slip into Luffy after his heart stopped beating, or maybe that's what caused his heart to stop beating. I will say that a point in that theory's favor is that this is not Luffy's smile. This is a very unnerving smile on Luffy's face. And to that I say, okay, yeah, maybe something is going on here that's not Luffy, because this is not Luffy's smile. And that does make it feel like someone else is here. But I'm not a fan of this. I hope that's not what's happening, because if Luffy, his heart stopped beating, his voice went out, and then he stands up and he's now being possessed by someone else, by this, person that we've been hoping to learn more about for so long. And then what's he gonna do? Stand up and make a speech in Joy Boy's voice, and then Joy Boy's spirit will leave him, and then Luffy is left dazed and confused but ready to fight. Somehow he's been rejuvenated by this possession, or is Joy Boy going to continue to possess Luffy, and Luffy is just gonna fight Kaido, Luffy's body but not Luffy's soul? That wouldn't be a satisfying ending to the fight to me. My theory, and I don't think that there is a theory that I could say that has not already been theorized, but the thing that I kind of landed on was that this is Luffy's fruit awakening, that Luffy is not made of rubber, that he's actually been made of a completely different substance this entire time, and we've all been wrong, including Luffy himself, which I'm actually super jazzed about. I love the idea that we've always thought that Luffy was made of rubber, but in fact, it's been something else, and now that we know the true properties of Luffy's fruit, now we can access new potential. I know a lot of people were talking about that color spread and it looked like tree sap. I think it kind of looks a little bit like honey, and I'm definitely down with it being honey, but it has to be something that has elasticity, that would be resilient against large attacks, large damage, resilient against lightning strikes and things like that. I know that there's a ton of theorizing that's already been happening. Like I said, my first guess was honey, but then my patrons told me that a lot of people are theorizing about the monkey sun god, which, oh my goodness, that is such a good theory. I didn't come up with it, didn't think of it on my own. I love it. That is a great theory, especially with, you know, Luffy being Monkey D. Luffy, with Luffy being so heavily associated with the sun god. I love this idea, especially since we're in Wano. So I like the idea of us continuing the theme of these being mythical fruits. I do think that it's obviously whatever is happening with Luffy is connected to the fact that Joy Boy has arrived. So I do think that where I've settled in my really bad theorizing is that I think that Luffy, that this, whatever devil fruit this is, whatever awakening this is, or whatever we're doing here, this devil fruit was Joy Boy's fruit, and that's what has caused its awakening to cause Zunisha to say, oh, Joy Boy is here, he's arrived. One thing that we do know is that Kaido has said a lot of really, really interesting stuff throughout this fight with Luffy. He said, rubber doesn't move like that. He said, you can't be Joy Boy, I believe after the first time he took Luffy down. And he said, death completes a person. I have the feeling that Kaido very quickly realized that Luffy's devil fruit is not rubber like Luffy thinks it is. That he very quickly saw something in Luffy, and I wonder if maybe Katakuri did too. I won't go too deep into that, but I think he saw in Luffy, Kaido obviously knows a lot more than us, and I think he saw in Luffy what is the devil fruit of Joy Boy, and he saw how Luffy was moving and said, that's not rubber, recognized Joy Boy's devil fruit, and thought that once Joy Boy died, that Luffy had eaten his devil fruit, which would make sense because the government was trying to hide the devil fruit, was transporting it, so maybe the world government knew that if the next person ate the devil fruit that they could potentially, I don't know, tap into the mantle of Joy Boy. Is that part of what this devil fruit brings? I have no idea. I mean, it's certainly possible that this devil fruit within the awakening contains the mantle of Joy Boy, which I kind of really, really like that idea, because that means that Luffy isn't necessarily the chosen one. I mean, I think that it's very clear that we're dealing with the chosen one trope in this story. There have been so many references that have made it seem like Luffy is the chosen one. He's the one to bring, you know, the new age. He's the one that is all the things. There's so many references. And I really like the idea that it's not that Luffy is the chosen one because he's destined to be the chosen one, but rather he, you know, Shanks stole this, raided the government ship, stole this devil fruit. I don't know what he had intended to do with it, who he had intended to give it to, if he had intended to eat it himself, probably not. And then whenever Luffy ate it, Shanks was furious, but then as soon as he ate it, he shifted to, okay, I'm gonna devote my life to protecting you. I mean, I'm overstating a bit, but he surrendered his arm when he was talking to Whitebeard. He said, I gave it up for the new era. Shanks, I think, knew that this devil fruit that he had, he knew what it was. And I don't know what his plan was with it, but once he realized that Luffy had it, he made it his goal to do what he could to help facilitate this, because he knew what Luffy was capable of. So I like the idea that Luffy isn't the chosen one because of a destiny upon him, but rather because of a mistake, because of a happenstance, because he happened to eat the fruit that contained the mantle of Joy Boy, the mantle of the Joy Boy. And the prophecies have been following him. He's just been on a journey. He's just been on a mission to become the Pirate King. He's just had a nice childhood dream, but because of the mantle that he carries, because of his determination, he then is able to access the awakening. So is it just that he's been hit extra hard? And if that's the case, if all of these things are true, if it's true that it was actually that Shanks knows what devil fruit he possessed the whole time and that he's just been waiting for Luffy to get to the point where he can take up the mantle, if that's true, then when he met with the elders and he said, I'd like to meet with you on behalf of a certain pirate, I don't remember the exact verbiage of it, was he telling them about the fruit? And that's why the elders now know about the fruit, and why the elders are now like, oh shoot, that fruit that we forgot about that holds all the power and that is extremely important. Whoopsie. Turns out Luffy has it, let's go kill him. Did Shanks go to the elders on behalf of Luffy to say, hey, by the way, I know what fruit he has and it's, you want to kill him now. So because Shanks knew that an extra big hit or like a near death would be what would cause Luffy to awaken to the mantle of Joy Boy, and so he baited the elders to make this execution call so that Luffy would be executed and be on the brink of death or die. Did Shanks know it's time? And so he went to the elders to goad them into making this call so that Luffy would be executed so that the mantle of Joy Boy would be awakened. Is Shanks in the know? I don't know. I do know that what I believe is that if this is all true and that it is Joy Boy's fruit that holds the mantle, I think that Kaido knows all these things. Kaido recognized in Luffy that he had the elasticity, that he had the what he needed to be whatever this devil fruit is, and he was testing him. That's why he was having such a good time fighting him, and that's why whenever he first took out Luffy and Luffy didn't change, his response was, you can't beat the Joy Boy, or you're not the Joy Boy, because he expected to knock him out and for Joy Boy to be awakened. That's what I think. And I also think that Kaido knew death completes a person. He knew that it would be in death, so I guess we assume that Luffy actually did die. It would be in death that the Joy Boy would be awakened. So the question is it actually the fruit? Is it the will of D? And that's why Kaido's been trying to kill himself. There's so many questions. There's so many directions that this could all go in. And again, it's probably gonna go in the one that none of us thought of. That was a lot. Let's take an intermission for some tasty Japanese snacks. So Bokksu is a premium Japanese snack box subscription service that delivers original assortments of Japanese snacks and tea pairings. And every month you'll receive a box with a different theme, which means the snacks will always be different. And the theme for the month of March is Sakura. Every year, Japanese cherry blossoms bloom all across Japan, and people celebrate by gathering under the trees, viewing flowers, and enjoying picnics together. So for the month of March, Bokksu has put together snacks and tea pairings sourced from all over the country that are perfect for your own Sakura celebrations. So this box is filled with limited edition cherry blossom themed snacks. I just got my box in the other day, and Corey and I have been picking through it and loving testing it out. I've shared a couple things with the kids, but I've mostly kept it to myself because it's delicious. So far my favorites that I've tried have been the strawberry choco mochi, which I was super excited to try specifically because of Katakuri. I've been wanting to try mochi. I tried some milk tea mochi recently, and then whenever another flavor of mochi came in the mail in this box, I was so excited to try more because they're really hard to find here. The strawberry milk marshmallow bites are delicious. My kids really liked the Sakura Bochi. Oh, and these peach gummies are so flavorful and sweet. And surprisingly, one of my favorites was the plum kelp, which sounds a little bit odd, but it was basically like eating chips. It was so salty and I don't know, it was such a unique flavor. And if you subscribe in the month of March, you get this specific box, the Sakura themed box. And again, each month after that, you'll have a totally new theme and new snacks to try. I have already bought a box for my brother because I know that he will love trying a bunch of snacks that you can't get here that are completely unique, and I've had so much fun going through it as well. Plus, if you use my code and the link in the description, you get 10% off your Bokksu box. And now, the chapter discussions. Once again, we'll just hit highlights because, man, I was thinking I can have concise videos. I can have just like a reasonable bite-sized chunk video now that I'm talking about, nope. Chapter 1041. One really big highlight of this chapter was Hiyori. So when Hiyori first showed up again, there was the possibility that it wasn't her, but I felt pretty confident that it was because I've been waiting for her to come back into the fight, and she was set up perfectly to be the one to take down Orochi, which he's not down yet. I mean, he is down, but he's not done. He could still come back up. He's not dead, you know, you just never know. But I loved this scene, this cold scene from her, which I feel like she so deserves after everything she's been put through, after everything that she's had to witness and having to grow up. You know, with Momo, they have such a different struggle. Because with Momo, all this happened so recently, and he's still an 8-year-old kid having to now take on the body of an adult and take on the mantle of an adult. I've used the word mantle too many times now. Having to take on the responsibilities of an adult and the expectations of being the shogun, but having so much fear and so many doubts, and there's so much put on him. But then you also have Hiyori, who we haven't explored what she's been through as much, but she lost both her parents in one fell swoop, assuming her mother is dead, which I'm not still super confident about. But she lost both of her parents in one fell swoop, and her brother disappeared, and several of the people who she trusts and who were her father's closest men disappeared, and then was left in an impoverished country, in a country that was being oppressed, and people were being so heavily harmed that they had lost their will to fight. She was left to forsake her identity, take on a totally different name and personality so that she could hopefully lie in wait for the time where everything would come to a head 20 years later. So she's been through so much too. I can't imagine that she's been able to handle her grief in a healthy way, because it all happened to her as a kid, and she has had to go through so much since then and kind of suppress it all and taking in a new identity. She's been through so much too, and seeing her stand up to Orochi and be the one to stop him with the sea stone nails, and I don't think she's done. I really want to see more out of her. I like that not every character in the series has to be a powerhouse, but I'd love to see her use her cunning and probably this anger that has been in her for so long. I'd like to see her continue to use that to cause some pillars to fall in the background that would allow everything to topple over. I have my eyes on this song ever since I did that theory video, and now I know the significance of being sake, which I didn't even freaking go into, but I know that there's a ton of people that have gone into the significance of that song according to the drums in this last, oh my goodness, there's so much going on. But anyway, now that all of this has been in the forefront of my mind, I'm also looking at her song because that seems to be significant, and I have a feeling we're coming back around to that too. And I really like in this chapter and in chapters following, in this chapter as well as 1043, we see characters saying like, if Luffy can't do this, we fail. If Luffy can't do this, we just all lose. We'll all die. And I really like that kind of stark reality that they're facing, where they're not saying we will prevail no matter what, we're going to win, like this confidence, but rather this reality of, if Luffy can't do this, we can't do this. I really like that because that has been the state of Wano for so long. Orochi and Kaido have done such a good job is probably the wrong wording to use, of oppressing people to the point that they will not fight anymore. I've talked about it so many times, I don't need to repeat myself. They've done such a good job of their evilness that the people, their hope was completely squashed, and they just didn't see any point in fighting anymore. And I think that it's such good writing to show that in our heroes too, to show the people that are fighting him and that are sacrificing their lives to fight this evil ruler, that they see that hopelessness too. And I feel like this scene in this chapter where Law is saying, If the man who emerges from that fight turns out to be Kaido, then I don't have the willpower left to resist. I love that because I feel like he is kind of speaking on behalf of those that are still fighting, in the sense that their hope is on the brink of being squashed too. I also love that that didn't end up being true when Kaido, I'm getting ahead of myself, but in chapter 1043, when Kaido does break through the ceiling and say Luffy is dead, and Law and Kid say, all right, well, we're still gonna fight. I love that that wasn't true, but I also love those glimpses of hopelessness that even our heroes are facing. Another really big reveal that we got in that chapter is that the journal pages, that Oden's journal pages about Laugh Tale were ripped out. I gotta wonder, did Oden rip them out because he was afraid that the journal would fall into the wrong hands? Did Toki, is that her name, Toki? Oden's wife, did she rip them out when he passed the journal to her? Because we still have a lot of answers that we need from her. She still is the one that knows about the Void Century and who jumped into the future, what was it, 100 years or more? She jumped into the future, so she has a lot of information, and she read Oden's journal. Did she tear the pages out when she read what he wrote? And what does she know? I'm still, Oda! She's still one character and one piece of this that it's a problem for me that we still don't have answers. Honestly, I don't know how you people do the week-to-week grind. It already sucks. I'm already just like, I need a lot more chapters right now, please. Oda, you deserve your breaks, but also this is rough. Another significant thing that I just want to kind of point out and then breeze past is the Fire Festival, all these residents that are still not aware of everything happening around them, that fill out those, I don't know, wish lanterns and send them up into the sky. I'm waiting for Oda's theatrics. I'm waiting for like a crocodile is defeated and the rain falls kind of moment, where like Kaido is defeated as the lanterns go up and pass him as he's falling or something like that, which feels a little bit less like it's going to happen now that Kaido has busted through the ceiling and said, where's Momo? Again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm waiting for some sort of theatrics. Oda did not pause everything to show Toko. Oda did not pause everything to show Toko putting her lantern up in the sky for nothing. There's a reason that this has happened. I assume it's for a theatrical reason, but maybe it's gonna be a plot. Maybe Momo's gonna, I don't know, see the lanterns and it'll instill hope in him, but I'm waiting. Okay, so what I really, really love is this CPO character who was given the call, given the order to interrupt the fight and cause Luffy to lose, right? I love his character. I don't know his name. I don't know anything about him. I maybe never will, but I love the role that he's played up to this point. With him, I feel like I know that as soon as he got that order, he knew what was coming. Interrupt the fight between Kaido and Luffy. He knew that what he had been given was a death sentence, and he still did it. And he did it without complaint, and he did it without pride. I love that when he stepped in and Oda panels to his masked face and he just has his head bowed, like he knows what's gonna happen. I love the humanity of Kaido. Again, there's so much complexity to his character that we don't even realize yet, but him having that instant flashback of him having won the fight with Oden in such a dishonorable way, and now he's winning the fight against Luffy in such a dishonorable way, and that tears him apart. He wants an honorable fight, and he doesn't want to win this way. Seeing him have that PTSD, that flashback, like it shows so much humanity in him. I love the humanity in Kaido. There's so much more that I need from Kaido. I'm just waiting for that flashback. I'm waiting for that flashback. But the PTSD that he still holds there, the honor he wants to keep in the fight, the knowledge that he has about everything that's happening with Luffy here and about Luffy's devil fruit, the flashback, the mini flashback we got of him where he saved King and he is laughing, you know, without restraint, and now he's so stoic and depressed, and like, what happened to you, man? But also the ruthlessness and heartlessness, like, I'm getting ahead of myself again. I love when he turns to CP0 guy and says, and just, it's like they both understand the situation, and he's just like, are you ready for what's gonna come next? Let's see. How does he word it? You're prepared for what happens next? Oh, it's so good. The mysterious announcer voice declares Kaido the winner after Luffy takes the hit and he's down again, and he's actually declared the winner. Luffy lost. His voice went out, his heart stopped beating, and the ominous voice said, Kaido winner. I mean, yeah, Luffy died. He died because of what Kaido said about something about, what did he say? Death completes a person. He died. He died, and now he's been completed by turning into a lava face and smiling in a funky way. But then CP0 still, even as the most powerful man, at least on Wano, is looking him in the face, furious at him for interrupting his honorable fight, his honorable win, and turns to him and says, you're prepared for what happens next? And CP0 doesn't, I don't know, he doesn't say anything. He just prepares for it. I love it. I love it. This could have gone cheesy so easily, and he knew what he was doing, and now he's accepting his fate. And he takes the hit. I love to see Marco still fighting. I love to see his little spin move that he did here. I love to see that he is still here, because honestly, I, the reader, am losing a little bit of hope too at this point. And Marco is basically our strongest player. We've lost Luffy, we've lost Sanji, we've lost Zoro, we've lost most of our red scabbards. Like, we're not in good shape. I'm glad Marco is still going. Granted, Kaido is probably terribly weakened as well at this point, but I don't know, man, it's not looking good. But also Kaido, once again, we see how good he is at being a villain, because Momo is still an 8-year-old. I don't care what you say, he is still an 8-year-old. He may have an adult's body, and Oda, we have words to speak to each other about that, but he's still a child, and he's still terrified of Kaido. So Kaido bashes through the ceiling and says, show me, well, he declares Luffy dead. He says, the entire country is one gigantic weapons factory. Women, children, I'll use them all. Everyone here is a slave. When you tire and fall apart, you'll simply die. It's all your life is worth, and there are always more replacements. You dared to fight back against me, and you have earned my wrath. This is what it means to lose a war. The cost of your defeat is your freedom and your hope. Bring Momosuke to me. The battle is not over until I deal with him. Man, that's such a good villainous scene. That is such a good villainous scene. He could just go and swipe Momosuke out of the sky. Like, I don't know, maybe he doesn't know where Momo is right now, and that's why he's doing this, but he could go find him. He's a dragon, he flies, he could go find him. But that's not his priority. He knows that he can swipe Momo down in a second. He's way more powerful than Momo. There is no fight here. But he understands that the greatest part of this battle is to squash hope again. Luffy and Momo rose new hope in the people, and he knows that his biggest task right now needs to be to squash that again and get them back into that state of despair where they have no reason to fight anymore and they just accept their fate as his expendable slaves. So he comes to declare Luffy's death and demands Momo's surrender because he wants this to happen in front of them. He wants them to know what happened, and he wants it to happen in front of them, and he wants to squash the last bit of hope that they have. And that is a good antagonist. There's a lot going on with him, and I need to know more, and there's a lot of humanity in him, but at the end of the day, this man is rotten, and he does it so well. Also love to see Nami being the one to stand up and challenge him and say, no, Luffy can't be gone. I love that because, again, we have had so many great little scenes like this with Nami, like when she was facing off against Ulti and she accepted, I will die, but I will not turn my back on Luffy. And then here she is. It's like that moment made her even stronger for this moment of challenging, again, the strongest man in the country. This man who is about to kill them all. She will stand up and challenge him to his face. Oh my goodness. Yamato's speech to Momo. Oh man, let me just read it. You have to fight, even if you know it ends in death. Isn't that what a samurai does? Who else but us can do it? Everyone's all torn up. Even Kaido is deeply wounded. Momo is going back and forth of, is this even worth it? Do I surrender and not risk more lives? Which is a reasonable question to ask. That's what his dad did. His dad surrendered so as not to hurt more lives. His dad danced in the streets for 5 years, making a fool of himself to protect his people. It's not an unreasonable question for Momo to ask. Do I surrender and die so my people don't? It's a reasonable question. But Yamato said, no, I won't let you do that. What will that survival even mean? Only a return to slavery, counting down the days to death. Surrender is not the same as salvation. The last 20 years of Wano is riding upon this battle. If you're going to let it go to waste, then let's face death together. And again, I think that Momo's question is so reasonable, but I'm totally on Yamato's side here because at the end of the day, is preserving their lives so that they can be so deeply harmed and not have a life under Kaido's rule, is that what he wants for his people? Or do they fight for that fraction of a hope that this very damaged powerhouse could possibly go down? Anyway, then we get the infamous scene that has broken my brain, and that is when Zunisha, his eyes turn the same, or rather Luffy's eyes turn the same as his eyes, and he announces how long it's been. I hear the drums of liberation, like in Skypiea. For the first time in 800 years, he is here. Joy Boy has returned. What a scene. That one broke me. That one really broke my brain when I read it. So we've already talked about this exhaustively, so I'm just going to briefly talk about it a little bit more because of the hopelessness that Oda wrote into this, and I think he did an amazing job. As I was reading this chapter, I too was feeling very hopeless. And you also have to look at the fact that, like I said, Sanji's down, Zoro's down, Luffy's down, all at once. One of my patrons pointed out that Sanji found out his powers aren't what he thought they were at the same time that we're potentially finding that out about Luffy. And Zoro is fighting death at the same time that it seems Luffy is doing as well. This is such an extreme chapter with so many things, so many opportunities for it to go in so many directions. But yeah, where I land is that Luffy, his fruit has been awakened, and with that we learn that the consistency is not rubber. We have not been rubber this whole time, but also his fruit holds the mantle of Joy Boy, whatever that means. I hope it doesn't mean a possession. The smile definitely does indicate that it does, because that's not Luffy's smile, but maybe it'll just mean like there's two spirits inside of him, and there will be sort of an internal dialogue between him and Joy Boy, and then Joy Boy will leave him and Luffy's powers will be awakened. I don't know. Or maybe his spirit is just visiting Luffy. Maybe they're gonna share a body for a second, which is essentially what a possession is. I'm like trying to talk myself around. But I will say that I'm so excited about the prospect that Luffy is not in fact made of rubber. I think that that is such a great development to completely change everything about the series while still keeping the series consistent. You know, like the core of the story is still the same, but we've now learned that we were mistaken all this time because of the secrecy, because of what the elders have been hiding, because of who knows what. We've been wrong this whole time, which means that everything that we've known up to this point Everything about Luffy has been true except for the name. And now that we know the true name of this devil fruit, now that we know what it actually is, that only gives us the opportunity to unlock more, or rather to be able to use it more effectively, which is great. I love that power up idea. Instead of just continuing gear 5th, gear 6th, gear 7th, instead of just continuing to get power ups in that way, this is a totally new route that we can take to make Luffy stronger. It's like the biggest wrench to throw in the series. 1,043 chapters in, but I love it. I love it. And I love that I was about to say, I love that we're about to get more answers, but it's probably not true. We're probably just going to be left with a lot more questions. But this has been fun. This has been overwhelming, but fun. And gotta tell ya, I'm not excited about the break. Oda, you deserve your breaks, but also I need like 10 chapters tomorrow to just start to wrap my head around what we're doing here. But I'm really, really, really excited too. So there you go, those are chapters 1041 to 1043. There's so many things that I didn't even touch on about the theorizing for this, as well as just about those chapters as a whole. So feel free to continue the discussion down in the comments. I post videos every Tuesday and Friday, and I post vlog videos on my vlog channel on Thursday. That's linked in the description. Be sure to check out Booksu. I have been very, very happy with my box, and I'm excited to continue getting their boxes and trying more snacks. I post videos every Tuesday and Friday. Oh, I already said that part. Bye.